one of the things that's kind of keeping me from being a Catholic is the position that women can't be in leadership, in particular ordained. And I don't know, I looked into it some, and it doesn't fit well with me. It almost seems a little discriminatory. I was kind of wondering what your thoughts were on it and kind of get an explanation.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate the question. Well, first let me deal with the question of leadership, because the Church actually teaches that women should be in leadership, must be in leadership in the Church and in civil society in many different domains. And I don't know if you're aware, the radio station you're listening to, the programming is produced by EWTN, which is a large media, television, radio conglomerate Catholic network. And it was founded by a woman, by a nun, Mother Angelica, who, until her retirement, was the chief executive power behind the largest Catholic religious broadcaster in the world. And so she had a tremendous amount of direct executive authority over her own agency, as well as a tremendous bully pulpit that she was able to broadcast around the world and have a profound impact on church life, literally across the globe. I mean, arguably one of the most influential Catholic women leaders in the world in the 20th century. So that's just an example that I've got very close to home because I work for her network, and her portrait greets me when I walk in the door every day. There are women that are members of Vatican dicasteries. These are the agencies of the Holy See that formulate Vatican policy and execute the Pope's policy in their various domains across the world. There are women that are on the International Theological Commission, which is an appointed position of leading theologians around the world that write position papers and help the Holy See in articulating the Catholic faith to the world in a highly intellectual and compelling way. There are women at the heads of all other kinds of Catholic agencies. One of the domains that I have worked in over the years is Catholic education, which is, of course, just replete with incredibly gifted and talented women in positions of leadership. When it comes to the question of a moral authority, moral suasion, women have always exercised a tremendous power within the Church. So at the top of the hierarchy of moral suasion, of course, would come the Blessed Virgin Mary, whom, as Wordsworth said, is humanity's solitary boast, and definitely the Catholic who we believe has the greatest power and authority to move the hand of God, as it were, by her prayers and intercessions, and is universally held to be the model of Christian sanctity, apart from Jesus himself. And in terms of those that are still on earth, the Church has often looked to female saints to provide moral clarity and guidance and challenge, even to popes, even to bishops, even to priests and men in authority. Catherine of Siena, late medieval Catholic laywoman who became a Third Order Dominican, was so highly regarded as a saintly woman in her own day. I think she was probably the closest thing that we could point to a prophetess, like an Old Testament prophetess, who would rebuke even the Pope, and he would listen to her and literally bend his will to her counsel, even to his own personal hurt, because she had that much power in the Church. Someone similar, I think, in the 20th century would be Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who was fearless about speaking the truth to power, to politicians and to church leaders alike. Even when that truth was uncomfortable, she would say her mind and had, of course, a tremendous amount of power and influence. So I just think it's just false to say that the Church doesn't recognize or advocate for women in leadership. There are women in leadership just all over the Catholic world, and the Church literally couldn't function without them. And there's a nod to that fact in a recent document from the Vatican. The General Directory of Catechesis actually points directly to the unique contributions of women in handing on the faith in the structured work of catechesis. And literally without women in leadership in this work, it's almost unthinkable that we'd have a functioning catechetical project. I mean, there's such a central role to women in this, so I mean, I just think the accusation is wrong. It's just ill-informed. Now, when it comes to the sacred priesthood, that is a particular type of leadership in the church, and specifically the leadership of the celebration of the liturgy. And there, the teaching of the church is that the priest stands in the person of Christ. He has a function in the liturgical drama, which is to be a stand-in for Jesus. He is, as it were, a second Christ, an alter Christus. And in relationship to the church, as a father to a family, as a husband to a wife. And that is Christ's relationship to the church. It's that of husband to wife. And so his identity with Jesus in that particular domain requires that he be a male person. So that's theological rationale. We also look to the fact that Christ himself ordained only men to the apostolate, only men to the sacred priesthood, and 2,000 years of Catholic tradition have confirmed that. So that's really part of the universal, ordinary magisterial teaching of the Church. And one of the rules of sort of canonicity, if you will, St. Vincent of Lérins said a long time ago, that which is taught everywhere, always, and by all. And the male-only priesthood absolutely falls under that description. I mean, there are some things in Catholic faith that have just never been questioned. They've always been part of the constitution of the Church. Believe it or not, the agreement, sort of universal agreement on the male-only priesthood is far more easily documented than even the belief in Christ's divinity, which clearly is dogma number one for Catholicism, that Christ really is truly God. But think about it, the 4th century had a major controversy over the question of Christ's divinity. No one ever thought to question the male-only priesthood until the mid-20th century with the rise of modern feminism.